Hi alchemic soul, is it hard for you to lead with the watercolor stains? Today we are going to let ourselves flow with this beautiful blooming on the paper, creating beautiful visions. Let's go to another watercolor talking. Hey creative soul, I need to tell you that this is not actually a tutorial. You don't need to follow up all the steps that I'm introducing to you. It's actually just some theoretical form that I use to reflect about creative processes, and it helps me a lot. And I also have to advise you guys that I don't usually do these videos in English, so please don't give up on me. This is my second one here in YouTube, okay? And I felt like it is just time to start doing it more because I just launched my first botanical watercolor ebook in English. Do you believe it? Which you can find available in the link below. I really hope you enjoy it. And it's being launched with a special price. So let's go to the watercolor talking here. The first thing that I did was to wash all the paper in the front and the back just with water, so we can construct a very beautiful background with greens. Actually, you can see that I'm using sepia green, gets very light with a little bit of yellow, and together I'm using a little bit of cerulean blue. Now I'm taking the magenta to work it as a background, a very blurry background that creates movement and also some depth. So in the front layers I can come with more of the drier techniques and create more definition and put it on the first side, you know. And you can see that I'm leaving some spaces, blank spaces, that are going to be reserved for the flowers in the first plant that we are going to do next. So now I'm changing my brush using a smaller one, a thinner one, that will help me to just get all the pigments that I don't want in the paper to get suspended and cleaned up. This is the lifting technique that's very important when we are going to correct something in our creation, in our art, and it helps us to get some light spots where we want. And you can see that my my camera didn't help me out in here. It's getting very blurry, it's not focusing at all, but I don't mind. Now I'm making some smaller parts with just some drops and the initiation of the forms, and I'm actually suggesting it, starting by just applying and letting yet the water to flow. You know, it's still very wet, but it is helping me to just create a very flowy. That's what I wanted in the first place. It's going to be very beautiful. So now it's like I'm doing the first layer of the flower itself, the first flower actually, and I'm putting the magenta very diluted with just a little bit of the cerulean in some parts that I think it's important to have just a little bit of shadow. And I'm looking at reference in front of me, so I'm trying to just suggest, I'm just applying the paint where I think it's important, letting some parts of the paper and the petals yet in white, so we can see some volume and the work of lighting shadow. I can say to you that even though the camera isn't helping me right now, this is the very most likable part of the art, where we just give impressions of what we see. And if you are looking at some reference, as I am in here, you can always use the tip of squeezing your eyes and see just the form, the primary form that you see at first, you know, and then only then you start to improve the definition by giving it some more depth. And you know that it's only going to be possible when the water gets drier, giving the pigment some more stability, and it's not going to flow so much, not going to be spread, you know. And now I'm doing the same on the other flowers of this bouquet, and I'm just having some good time. I know that you could easily lose your mind in here, thinking that's not going to work, that this is not beautiful enough, or that you just don't have any control on the water, and that's true actually. But in this time, in this part of your project, you're just doing that, you're just constructing, you're just insinuating where the flowers are, and then you are going to make all this blurry information to get clearer. You can also see that at this point I'm actually putting some more pigment, some more magenta, because I'm getting used to understand how the water is flowing, how it is working in here, and this is important to me as well. In this part, I'm going to let it settle a little bit, you can see, and now I'm showing to you that I'm going to another brush. That's a knife brush, very beautiful one that I love to use. It's from Keramiki, and it will help me to just clean a little bit, lifting some pigments in here to create this part that receives some more light, as I told you so in the first part. So now I'm doing this on the flowers itself. My intention on doing this, on getting this part lighter, is to come and put the bottom of the flowers in the second, actually the third layer, I think so. I'm making a mixture of the magenta and the ultramarine blue, which will give me a very beautiful purplish color, and I'm going to use it in some parts, giving it some smooth contour to the flowers, making them pop up a little bit, which is very interesting. You can see that there are no secrets in watercolor. Actually, you just need to understand how the water flows, the drying time of the paper, which is very, very important, and with this you can master watercolor. And of course it takes a long journey, you need to experiment, you need to just let go the fear of losing control. And we do it in so many ways in our lives, not only in watercolor. Now I'm mixturing some beautiful green with ochre, which will help me to give some more depth in the flowers, and they will be like gentle frame to the composition. And now that the paper is drier, very much drier than in the beginning, I'm just applying so much more vivid magenta and opening up some parts which I think that deserve some more light. You can see that when we have the reference it's a little bit easier, but when we just want to watercolor some flowers and we just don't know where the light and the shadow are, use these tips to yourself. You can always think what's in and down usually don't receive much of light, natural light, so you can just put some more pigment, you can use some shadow in these areas and on the top, and some more exposed places of your element, of your flower, you can just see more light, so you can keep some more whites of the paper. Now I'm working giving some more gradient to the areas, and also I'm starting to create some lines that exist as natural textures that exists in here, and I'm just seeing it now. I can clearly see all the flowers and the way that they bloom out of the paper, even though we have a very colorful background, and I'm very excited about seeing it because all the colors talk to the other ones, and the magenta, the pink, creates a very profound and vibrant talk with the greenish areas because they are complementary colors in the chromatic circle, and it helps us to, well, construct some beautiful information in here. So we are creating contrast. That's very important. We don't need to use outlines to, well, pop them up, because the color interaction in here do it for ourselves. Now I'm using the green with the ochre, a little bit of the purple mixture that I did, and some light yellows also, to make this leaf information around all the flowers and putting it into the contact of them to define even more the outlines of these flowers, not necessarily using outlines, you know. And while I'm doing this, you can see that the paper is so much more drier right now, and this is helping me to achieve the final layers. And we are going to see some glimmering here. See how the flowers are so beautifully, well, relating to each other and creating such a smooth composition. This is super satisfying. And at this point we just play. That's what watercolor tells us to do. And while we are just playing, we are just applying, we can see how the watercolor calls us to put some more information at some points using the limited palette that was intuitively created in the process. And this limitation actually helps us to have such a rich, beautiful composition. And now we are going to the final steps of this watercolor by giving some more depth in just some places, not all the places, using the magenta, a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the purple, and we're outlining but not putting this information in all of the flower. We're just insinuating as well, leaving it to work. And also this paper is still a little bit wet, so even though we are creating some more contrast, it's not too much, it's not so obvious, but it's well done, dramatic style. I loved it so much. And no matter how many times you pass in the watercolor, it seems like the words can end and you can still just painting, because it's like the paper is inviting you to be there in the presence of yourself. And that's what I enjoy the most about watercolor and its techniques. Now I'm using some bright and beautiful yellow to just point out the center filaments of each flower. And yes, we use so much water in the front and the back of the paper, but I know that now you are no longer afraid of just flowing with the watercolor. And hey, if you're new in here, don't forget to subscribe, to hit the like button to help me to spread watercolor's word for all the world, okay? Thank you so much, Creative Soul, for being with me in this video. See you next, and well, let me know what you think about this format, okay? See ya!